had everything I wanted. I finally became a mom. I had a solid marriage. We were financially stable, beautiful house. I had my dogs. I had everything. So why did I find myself sitting on the back of the deck, sobbing uncontrollably? I could not stop crying. I felt like the worst mom in the world. I thought I was doing everything wrong, and I felt so alone. This day came 6 months after I became an adoptive mom of two toddlers. Obviously, I was very overwhelmed. And the worst part of that experience was that I felt so alone. The good part is that I called my husband. He came home, looked after the girls while I went to the doctor, and I was able to share with the doctor how I was feeling. So he prescribed me some antidepressants. And then it was the next question that he asked me that really has changed my life. The question was, what changes are you going to make? Now, I don't know if I looked at him and said, excuse me, what are you talking about? You just gave me a prescription for the happy pill, or maybe I said it in my head. I don't know. But I took it in and I thought about it. What changes could I make? I was now a new mom. I was 46 years old, had an active massage therapy practice. I was exhausted. Financially, we were taxed out. And I had a lot less time to myself. So I started to look at the bits and pieces of what could I change in my life? And believe it or not, the first change I made was I started stretching when I was brushing my teeth. Okay, you're probably wondering, like, what? How does that help? I had back surgery in my mid-20s. I've had chronic lower back pain for most of my life. And if you've had pain or chronic pain, you know that doesn't make you a really nice person, doesn't make you a very good mom, or a lot of people don't want to be around you. But by stretching, I gained a little bit of control back over that pain. And so I was a little bit happier, and I was a little less irritable. And I would stretch several times during the day, which would ease the tension off my lower back. And this is how simple self-care came to light. This is how my journey started. And now I'm continuing as a stress disruptor using simple self-care.
Well, hello, this is Don,
And this is Gina with Focused Healthy Family.
and this is podcast number 197. And today we get to talk with Rita Garnto with Simple Self Care by Rita, your simple self care guru, I call her. Rita Garnto is a passionate advocate for self care and stress management, blending her years of healthcare experience with a compassionate, down to earth approach. As a speaker, author, and creator of simple self care strategies, Rita empowers individuals to prioritize their well being in a busy world. When she's not helping others find balance, you can find her working out, working in the yard, or spending quality time with her family. Rita's mission is to prove that even small steps towards self care can lead to big changes. Well, Rita, it's wonderful to have you back here on. This is our second time, I think, with you. And
She was on the early days of our podcast.
yeah, when we were.
Thank you. It's great to be back.
Yeah.
And 197. Woo! And you didn't save me for the 200th one?
Damn, I didn't think about that.
Come back.
We can always bring you back,
Oh, there you go. In 3. Yeah.
But I know today, you brought up about doing this, the global stress epidemic. And I think, that we're wrapping up the end of the year. It's kind of good to look at kind of what we've kind of done to ourselves over these last probably at least 5 years, but this past year especially, it's gotten to be outrageous in a way what we're going through. So I'd like to talk a little bit. First, I'd like to kind of first tell about what you do, kind of recap a little bit for our audience of what you do, and then we'll get back into this epidemic part.
Okay. Oh, so sorry. I thought you were...
That's not a pause. That is your.
I thought you were gonna. Anyway, so sorry.
Did you want me to go through
it? No, it's okay. So I am a keynote speaker. I am an author. I'm a workshop facilitator. I'm an adoptive mom. I used to be a caregiver of my dad, 90-something-year-old dad, 3,000 miles away. And really, sort of, my mission is to help you understand that stress overload, first of all, exists and it is disrupting our lives, our health, and is killing us. And it's not hard to back off to help decrease our stress overload. Now, we have to understand that stress isn't going anywhere. So what we're changing is your awareness of, oh, I'm feeling kind of stressed, I'm irritable, I'm overwhelmed, I'm like, I just want to go take a nap, I want to shut down. Those are all key symptoms of stress overload, and understanding at that point, oh, okay, I'm feeling really stressed. Let me do something to help reset my nervous system, help me think clear, help me get back to where I need to be so I can keep moving forward.
Yeah, the whole idea of, reduce the stressors in your life, like, what do? You can't sell your children and I mean,
Some days I wanted to. If you let me. So, but you're right. So and especially this year, there's been so much. I'm not getting into politics, but so much turbulence and so much happening that I think most of us feel like the world is turned upside down. Now, what happens with this is most of all this is an uncontrollable situation. So I ask you, and I ask you and your listeners, what can you control in an uncontrollable situation? What's the one thing you can control?
Our thinking,
You can control your reactions.
reaction. There you go.
So it's being able to step back and take a look at, okay, I don't agree with what's going on. I'm not going to watch the news every day or, 10 hours a day. Because nothing I do or say is going to change what's happening, but I can change how I react. It doesn't mean I have to be happy about what's going on. You do what you can where you can, but you can't take it on, if you know, you know what I mean.
right.
One great example is both my girls are out of the house now. My youngest is just home for winter break from university. A couple of years ago, a good friend gave me some advice, and how turbulent teenagers can be, especially girls. And their communication skills, I don't know, somewhere that they lose their communication skills. And so they'll just blurt stuff out at you that can be very offensive and rude. And I'm still in the process of learning, is that when that happens is I take a moment and go, wait, that is her roller coaster. Like whatever's going on there, whatever that story behind that comment, that's about her. It's not about me. And when you can make that differentiation, then you can step back and go, okay, maybe we could talk about this when you're a little calmer. Where did this come from? What exactly are you talking about? And then creating a conversation rather than your brain being triggered like you're under attack. Because sometimes it feels like that.
Yeah.
And it's on, man, it's on. Like I'm in there and I'm throwing words back just like, she's throwing them at me. And so it's such a process. And it's just one little thing at a time, like just having that second of awareness. Oh, maybe I should just, okay, what exactly did you mean by that? So that's it's learning the difference between controlling and what you can control, what you can't control. It's tough.
It is. It is. We still have a teenager. We made it through 2 other children who went through the teen years, and we have a 16-year-old. So totally relating to everything you're saying. Yeah, it's easy to react. And like you say, taking that minute, someone taught me to say, isn't that interesting? Even if we just think it to ourselves. And like you said, that stepping back to be able to respond rather than react to it, because you're so right. Things are going to go on. Our kids are going to do things. The world's going to do things. And we get to choose our reactions.
Right. And you get to choose what's going to work for you. When if you
Right.
have to step out of a situation, my older daughter lives on her own now and she's like, "Mom, guess what happened?" And I'll be like, "Do I really want to hear this?" Right? She's almost 21. There's a lot of stuff going on. Mom doesn't want to know, right? So then it's like setting your boundaries and saying, "Well, maybe I don't really want to hear where you went Friday night and what happened," right? So learning like what's good for me, what is going to sort of help my mental health and my energy levels. Um, and it sounds complicated, but really it's just starting with one thing, just being able to take that deep breath and just stepping back.
Well, we talk about, because you mentioned it as a global stress epidemic, and I think that's very true. I think it goes back a little bit to, and it's going to sound weird, but I used to, I used to call it the, what was it, oh, my mind's dropping now. We get everything by instantaneous now. Our Amazon is delivering to us that afternoon sometimes, and it's just too rushed with
Yeah.
what we're doing.
Information overload kind of.
And
It's
I'd
you
like,
know it is, especially, and I see it. My kids are in the generation that school pardon me, phones first came into schools, right? And then the teacher would say, "Okay, your assignment's on your phone." Well, we didn't let our girls take the phone to school, so then they were the oddball because
Mm.
everybody else had their phones. And so I think there's a lot more information overload. I think now we understand really how bad it is, and we're starting to work towards decreasing that effect. Yeah, I just lost my train of thought, Don. My brain just went on the same train as yours.
yeah,
But you're
I
right.
have a,
Everything's instantaneous. So we lack patience. We
mhm.
lack tolerance. We now in the social media, anybody can say just well, even the leaders of the top leaders in the world can say anything and everything they want. And where did the respect go? Where did the politeness go? Where did um like it just is like all holds are gone. Like it's just like it's a free for all. I can say what I want, I can do what I want. I don't care if I hurt your feelings. Oh, in 5 minutes if I feel different, doesn't matter, right? Yeah, we just I don't know, we've become sort of a rude society because it's easier on social media because I can write anything I want and I'm not in front of the person. The person's not
Right.
gonna you know what's the word,
Well,
um be
it kind
aggressive back, right?
I mean, it's kind of taking what you're developing as far as the physical part and adding to the mental part of like simple self-care goes stronger than just the physical part. It's
Absolutely.
backing out of stuff that's going on here. Like you say, I always talk to people about I use EFT to help them, and I think it helps kind of build a shield against those things that, like you said, that are coming at us. And instead of us absorbing it, we need them to be able to bounce off of that.
No, and I agree. Even, like I'm not some, simple self-care guru living on the top of a mountain, like I live this every day and I practice it every day. Today, I start off as kind of a blah day and I'm using my positive affirmations. I'm like identifying the emotions I'm feeling. Where are these emotions coming from? Why are they being triggered? Like I use this stuff every day. And to some people, that may sound really tiring, but I did start with one thing in the beginning, and you just learn. You just have tools in your tool belt. And the thing I like to do is I'm a science nerd. I want to know why. So why does something work? So in my workshops and my talks, I go all the way back to what is the stress response? What exactly is going on in our brain? Our brain triggers, it senses that there's a threat to our safety. Well, it might be imagined, it might be real, it might be perceived. It's not necessarily that this, dog is running at me or there's charging elephants coming at me. It could be something really subtle, or that I'm imagining my house is swept off the mountaintop by a tsunami, right? So understanding that our brain, it's an involuntary response, then being aware of, oh, I feel butterflies and my heart's beating fast and I'm a little irritable again. I feel a little overwhelmed, and looking at, well, what just triggered that?
Mhm.
So increasing, awareness. And then science shows it takes 30 seconds to actually reset, to start resetting your nervous system. So take a pause, breathe, reset. So that breathing could either be a physiological sigh, and the kids that I taught at the summer camp this last summer, we called it a double double. So you take a big breath in and take another breath in, and then all the way out. And repeat again, big breath in, another breath, and then all the way out. So by literally pausing, and there's so many things, it's not just breathing. It could be standing up and stretching. It could be standing up and walking to the other room. You're letting your brain know that you're safe, and you can switch to your other nervous system where you can think clear and you can continue on your day without like having the stress response. That was a lot of information.
No, it's good information. What I guess what was there something particular that kind of triggered you into this idea of the epidemic idea? Was there something in particular that changed everything?
Well, oh yes, the first stress management presentation I ever did was in 1997. Okay, I was on the trauma flight team back then, and our director encouraged us to create presentations that we could present to the community. And so when I was looking up statistics back then, so what is that, almost 30 years ago, stress was already, the results from surveys were already like 75% of people, in this particular survey said they felt some effects of stress. Okay, so now as we're continuing on and we've gone through COVID, and now we're going through, we've got several wars going on, potentially other wars starting. Like, stress isn't, it's building, right? It's getting worse.
Mhm.
And so when I think back to, oh my gosh, like 30 years ago, I was talking about stress overload already and what was happening to us. And now 30 years ahead, you kidding me? Like there, we are in a global epidemic. And then you look at mass shootings, number of suicides. You've got 400 emergency physicians a year completing dying by suicide. You've got, increased numbers of students and kids and shooters, and I rest my case, right? This is a serious problem.
Yeah, I've always said growing up, the youth today, the teens, and even the early 20-year-olds, it's a lot. The social media is out there. They know everything about everything. Our youngest has been plagued by just the things going on in the world, and just even taking that on, and feeling so helpless with it because information is just everywhere all the time, and there's just so many different things happening that and because we know about it instantaneously, really. I think it's fueling things. It's great to have the information, but it also, setting those boundaries you mentioned, even, with your daughter, and limiting what people share with you, but also setting boundaries as far as what you take in. You mentioned like the news, and I make sure my Facebook feed is positive and empowering and supportive of me. If people are putting stuff out there, I put that away because I want it to be uplifting. I want it to be supportive.
Because yeah, I've seen some, different threads on Facebook and other social media that I'm just like, why are you even saying, like, why are you dissing that person? They just were open and honest about an experience, and this is how they felt, and you're telling them they're stupid. It's like, where did we go off? Where did we, get off sort of on the good path? I don't know. And I blame so much of these poor decisions on stress, on the stress overload. Because one of the things that happens in a stress response is the blood flow shifts in your brain, and it actually diverts from your prefrontal cortex, which is the part of your brain that makes the really good decisions, right? That doesn't mature till we're 26 or 30. Why, I don't know. But so when you're in stress mode, you're literally not thinking.
Mhm.
So if people would just try to be less reactive and kind of step back, you know, pause, reset, breathe, and then make your choice, I bet you there'd be a lot of different choices. I would hope so.
I, what I think, well, not worry about, but I think about is what we'll go to the doctor for the physical part of us. Problem happening, we go to the doctor. We don't we don't do that for our mind. In fact, it's still very much, I think, I don't know if I'd say it's in infancy, but it's very much we don't think about what's going on up here and how this thing here is running this thing here.
Right.
And I think we need to
I think
change that somehow.
yeah, I think the awareness is increasing. I remember I used to be a storyteller because I've navigated low grade depression all my life. Just found that out a few years ago. It explained, a lot of things. Um, and there's, we had coffee and conversation. So, I would be like, I'd talk about my story about my low grade depression and how it affected my life. There would be other people who'd come in and talk about their bipolar disorder. So there's been a lot more conversation. And me, like I'm very authentic. You know that, Dawn. You've known me for quite a few years, and I will stand up on an audience on a stage in front of like a huge audience and tell them I'm on antidepressants still. Like
Mhm.
I'm not ashamed of that. Oh, by the way, I'm also on thyroid medicine. Should I be ashamed of that? Or I
Yeah,
take magnesium at bedtime to help me sleep. Should I, so I think the more conversation we generate and the more conversation and honesty, we can create. And I think like attracts like. So I'm a workshop facilitator at AmeriHealth Caritas. And the it's usually the women, mostly women, but some men come to my workshops. Like they're not afraid, like they listen, like they're like really engaged
yeah.
and they understand. And people need to let go of their egos. Like we're all in this together. I
Mhm.
can't do this by myself. I couldn't have done any of this with when we adopted our toddlers and massage business and my mom died and then all this other stuff going on. You need to be open and honest. So I don't know how do we get that moving other than through honest conversation and without judgment.
Mhm.
Yeah. I mean, have you um well, I would imagine you've changed what you've done from the very beginning to now, but is there something in particular about this epidemic that you've kind of changed your way of presenting it?
Actually, it is. That's a really good question. So this year I've developed two new talks. One is, how is stress affecting your bottom line, which really focuses on then businesses. And now if you're stressed, and so talking about how stress affects productivity, absenteeism, staff turnover. And then in October, I was honored to give a presentation to trauma doctors and nurses, and it was Life on the Line, the deadly cost of ignoring stress. And so really again identifying, and then the startling statistic is like I said, 400 ER physicians a year die by
Wow.
suicide. Like, what are we doing wrong?
Mhm.
And I've just become an ambassador with the Dr. Lorna Breen Heroes Association. She was a doctor that worked very, very hard during COVID, and she ended up dying by suicide because she was so exhausted. And if she admitted that she was having mental health issues, she would have lost her credentialing.
Mhm.
So
Oh,
now they formed this foundation to help not have that clause in the credentialing. So I'm just learning about that. But it's we need to take care of our caregivers and ourselves. And
Mhm.
yeah, that's not happening, but
Well,
so
there are definitely gains and progress made, and it's becoming more fashionable to have a therapist. I mean, that's much more out there as far as the information, but yeah, the true honest connections with people and sharing this information, because yeah, we do put different expectations on people depending on what their role is in society and the jobs they play. I didn't realize that statistic was out there on ER physicians. I know other statistics related to high rates of suicide and yeah, thinking
You've got,
about
attorneys and yeah, so it's yeah. And then, even the caregivers, there's, more nonprofits that are showing up that are about caregiver mental health wellness, right?
sure.
So let's provide support for the caregivers, because these poor caregivers, they're looking after, their spouse that perhaps has dementia, and they don't have the resources to get outside help, and they're on 24/7. So I think it's getting better known. I do, and I hope as time goes on, I get on more stages and in front of more people, I can share that it is okay to not be okay
Hmm.
and ask for help. So,
I'd like to back up and just ask for more ideas for the simple self-care because,
okay.
a lot of our audience is busy raising kids, caring for aging parents. And yeah, I know when I first met you, you talked about the stretching while you brush your teeth. I've done similar things in the bathroom and like I love these ideas of just little ways we can incorporate into our daily lives. So give us some more tips.
Well, so I've got three categories. So the first category is in the moment. So so the deep breathing, so you can have box breathing, you in, hold for count of four, out, hold out for four, hold for four. There's different kinds of breathing methods.
Mm-hmm.
Engaging one of your senses. So if you're really frustrated, going and looking out the window and, in the fall, like how many different colors of leaves can I see? Again, it's all about disengaging your brain. It's
Mhm.
letting your brain know you're safe. I love dark chocolate, so I engage my taste buds and I put the top dark chocolate in my mouth and let it melt. And it's like, oh, what flavors do I taste? And that's my stress go-to is dark chocolate. Or listening, go out, step outside for a minute.
Mm-hmm.
The second category is movement. So exercise is so good for your mental health. Yes, I know we're really busy, but maybe you don't have time for a 30-minute walk or a 20-minute walk. Why not 5 minutes? Like go to the end of the driveway and back. Or maybe if you're in an apartment building, like walk around your apartment building. Just get outside, just simple breathing and moving. And the last one is mindfulness, which is a word I made up to describe brain dumping. And I'll use
Uh,
this one a lot as well. Like, so at the beginning of your day, you're like, oh, I've got this, I've got this, oh, I got, what do I do first, right? So I write it all down. I'm literally letting my brain vomit on the paper, right? And then I can look at, okay, I've got these 10 things that I really want to get done. Which are the top, like, what's the top one that really has to get done today? Like, really important needs to get done. Get it, start there, and then do number two and number three. And if you only get three done that day, oh, well, there's tomorrow, right? But journaling is also really good. I also do journaling classes, and I've created my own set of Dear Self journals, positive affirmations, reading scripture, reading fiction, just something where you can just sort of, again, distract your brain, let your brain know you're safe.
you bring there was somebody I had. This was on my past um, podcast. I had a lady on that talked about there's a 5-step process for changing your mind, like you talked about. But the first one is the first 5 things you can um,
Oh,
look at. It's a whole
and
scale
like
down
four
to
four things you can, yeah, five things you can see, four that you can hear, like touch.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah, I've heard
yeah.
that too. So really, anything, um, and finding the thing that works for you. Just because
Right.
stretching and brushing my teeth works for me, and I still do it, doesn't mean it's the perfect exercise, because if you don't want to stretch or it hurts to stretch or oh, you hate stretching, so you need to find your own thing. So and so in my workshops, I have probably a dozen different workshops, and they all focus on the stress and the simple self-care with lots of different options. Like, what do you
Mhm.
like to do? And maybe today it's journaling. Maybe later on it's going out and punching the punching bag you have in the garage, or running up and down the stairs, or doing something. So it's really figuring out what works for you.
Sure.
Well, I've kind of, I kind of take that same philosophy with my EFT because I started realizing people, they get the idea. It's kind of like with exercise, they don't have half hour, they don't have an hour to do this tapping process. So I've been really getting out there. Of course, I always talk about the breathing, but I talk about doing just hitting a spot and taking 5 minutes or a minute when something strikes you up is to just take the breath, do a little tapping, and get that down. So I've
So
kind
let
of simplified it too.
and that's good. So I'm going to ask you, what would be your go-to if I said, I'm anxious about something coming up. So I'm going to take a deep breath. What's the point that I would tap?
It's any point. That's the thing about it is
So
that
it could be,
it could be any point. It could be a couple of points if you want to, but
okay,
like this is my safety spot here. When
okay.
when I when I'm driving out in the road and some jerk pulls in front of me the wrong way, I say
Gosh,
a
that
few
never
words.
happens here in Charlotte.
Well, I'll just do the breathing and the tapping. And sometimes if I really want to work it, I work in the back of my mind with what I'm thinking. Because it's for us, it's about what's the negative thoughts that are coming out with this and
Right.
working through them. And so I'll just hit a spot or a couple of spots. What I always talk about is rubbing,
Yeah, my
you know.
favorite thing to do is people don't even know what you're doing. You just put your hand in this kind of spot below your collarbone here at your chest, which is where you would tap, but you just kind of, and you think about it, if something happens, you kind of, your
Yeah.
reactions are to kind of do these kinds of things. But just, yeah, people don't know. I've done this when I'm in a social setting and I'm overhearing someone the way they're talking to their kids or something that's real negative that I find overwhelming. I'll just kind of kind of do that thinking about them, but then also myself. So I'm not taking in the other's negativity. But yeah, because
That's a
it's
great
very
idea. Usually when I do that, it's because I have some trigger point or pain going on. But I
well,
love
and
that. I love that. Or just,
rubbing the
Yeah.
rubbing
fingers
your fingers
together.
together.
Hmm.
Absolutely. So it's just finding what works for you. And I love that. I'm going to share that in my workshops now too, the tapping, just picking one, breathe, and then tapping.
Yeah, that's the great thing about EFT is you can't do it wrong. When I first learned it, it's, you can tap in any order, you can, tap on any points and just like finding what techniques work for you. I love music and I found, kids are getting on my nerves or just arguing with each other. If I put some music in my ears, I can kind of zone out to my own
Yeah.
world. Our middle child does that all the time. Our 23-year-old has always got earbuds in, and I know it's her way of kind of coping. And
Yeah.
um,
Well, and
It's,
the
it's
other
good.
thing most people don't think about is that EFT can bring an instant relief, but if the more you do it, like I do it every day, and the more you do it, it kind of builds that, like I say, that shield that things that come at you don't come at you the same way. So
Yeah, that's great. No, I absolutely agree. You've got, you have to have your tool belt full of tools, because yeah. So I like positive affirmations are really powerful as well.
mhm.
So if we have time, I have a funny story to tell you about
sure,
positive affirmations.
go for it.
Go for it.
So when I moved to Charlotte, I was looking for a new job and I was a respiratory therapist at the time. So I saw this ad for transport therapists and I literally thought I was going to be in the back of an ambulance going from, hospital A to hospital B. And I'm like, I get motion sick, but I needed a job and, whatever. Thinking the interview is going to be an hour, right? So I walk into a room full of people and the organizer, hands us a packet of papers and says, okay, we're going to start with naming these 12 EKG strips, so heart rhythms, and you're going to measure out what the P wave is, the QRS complex, the T wave. You're going to give all that information plus the name of the rhythm. And then we're going to have lunch, and then you're going to go upstairs and you're going to go through 4 oral testing stations. So you have to run a cardiac arrest, you have to do a pediatric emergency, you have to do some broken bone, and you're in charge and you're going to run this. And I'm sitting there going, like, what? And finding out that I had applied for a job, trauma flight team, helicopters and airplanes, right? So I'm now a recovering perfectionist, but so then I was a perfectionist. I was sitting there, I'm like, oh my gosh, I haven't prepared at all, right? So the only thing I could think to do was like run to the bathroom. So I went into the bathroom, sat in a stall. I don't know, pants up or down, sat in a stall, and I started to say my positive affirmations, which are, I am safe where I am. I create my own security. I love and approve of myself. I'm at peace with my own feelings. So there I am sitting there telling myself over and over and over again. And what I didn't realize at the time, I was resetting my nervous system. I was calming my nervous system down. So then I was able to make a very logical decision. I had two choices: walk out of the front of the hospital, never be seen again, or I could try my best and see what happens. So I decided to try my best. And that was one of the most, I got hired along, there was 9 others. There's 10 of us in total that got hired. It was an amazing career I never thought that I would ever have. It just unbelievable. And so just going back to the point where I was, was in stress mode, right? And just being able to calm my brain enough to look at it logically and make a good decision. And I ended up having this great career. So, but I still, sitting in the bathroom, I love and approve of myself. I'm staying where I am. I create my own security.
Yeah, I found myself going outside and taking a short little walk sometimes. Something at work is stressing me, or even at home. I've always told my kids, if you're stuck, move. Step
Yes.
outside,
Love
change
that.
rooms, any kind of physical movement will help shift the brain. And yeah, just getting in these little habits, I think, is what helps, because then when you really need it, you're already in that habit of doing that, rather than waiting till you have a total catastrophe happen in your lives and you don't have any coping strategies. Yeah, it's a lot easier if you start just every day finding things.
Well, and that way too, instead of being like, if this is your elevated stress level, at least it comes down. It may go back up again. It probably will go back up again, but at least you're giving your body some sort of respite, some sort of rest. And the thing is, I don't think people understand really the devastating effects of the stress overload. So, and I read a quote recently that if stress was a disease, it would be an epidemic because its fingerprints are on all the major illnesses that are causing us to be sick and to die in our modern times. Like you can
Wow.
trace them all back to stress overload.
Yeah. Well, I when I do a talk, I usually bring up the idea of fight or flight. I take it a little deeper and say that it's what fight or flight does to you. Like you said, all the chemicals and stuff that happens, the brain closing down and stuff. I really want people to understand that, because I don't think we don't think about stress and
Yeah.
how serious it really is. And it's this thing running this thing. And if it isn't running right, and that's why I'm at the doctor that I'm at, because that was one of the blocks that they found, that people would be going along the healing process and then run into a wall
Yeah.
and just stop. And that's what I really try to help them get past. And
Yeah.
we just don't think about that.
Yeah, and that's great. And that's actually really the foundation of a lot of my workshops is exact talking about the fight or flight versus resting and digesting and all those things that happen. And I think, and that's increased awareness. It's like, oh, okay, now I'm feeling anxious and my whatever, my liver's dumping all the sugar into my blood. Well, you keep doing that over and over again. There's pre-diabetes, there's diabetes, high blood pressure, cardiovascular disease, because you're asking your heart to work harder every time you have a stress response. So that's awesome, Don. I'm glad, we're on the same wavelength
Yeah.
that way. It's just get to the lowest common denominator to understand what's really happening.
And
Yeah.
what you said is so powerful, that stress underlies, all disease. It's like Don was 52, he had his first heart attack, and people looking at him, he doesn't smoke, he doesn't drink, he's physically fit, he's exercised, even eating more healthy over the years, how powerful stress is, that can affect. I say it's his German background. They stuff their feelings. They
I may start smoking just to get past this. I don't know.
Well,
Just
maybe, no, I wouldn't recommend it. Well, I lost my mom, so I'm of German heritage, and I lost my mom. She was 75, died of a massive stress-induced heart attack, and
Mhm,
and people may say, "Oh, sure, it was, from stress." I can tell you, I can give you the whole rationale behind why I think that is, and I
mhm,
mean, it starts with her being a childhood refugee of World War II.
Mhm.
mhm.
So yeah, stress kills, and
Well, it's really surprising what I've found with the patients I'm working with is I'd say probably maybe 85% of them, it goes back to childhood, what their parents did, what their parents came up with, what they said, and how they interpreted it. Because that's what a lot of times I'll go back to our tapping is about what I didn't deserve this as a child, but I took it on anyway.
or
And
they
I've been,
told me I wasn't good enough.
oh
Right.
God,
And
that's a strong one.
Mhm. Yeah,
and
those
so what's
messages.
interesting about that, Dawn, is that ties in then to when I talk about stressors, about being perceived stressors.
Hmm.
The perceived stressors really are the story you're telling yourself.
Uh-huh.
So I love
Right.
that. So that's a tie-in with that is, they said I should never go into medicine, or, I had someone when I said I want to write a book, actually my mom said, don't kid yourself. 2018, I wrote a book and I'm looking at doing it, the second edition soon. And, um, it wasn't in my mom's wheelhouse, I'm not mad
Mhm.
at her, but, she couldn't
No,
Right.
but
see beyond that, and if I'd listened to her, I wouldn't be able to say I was an author.
yeah.
Yeah, we
Well,
carry
yeah,
around.
our mind builds us into this kind of square box, and then when we step out, it freaks out a lot, It's
Yeah.
so yeah, I recommend your book quite a bit to the patients I deal with all the time because it's like, you don't have a lot of time to exercise. Well, here's a good opportunity, so
And
Get
on
yeah.
that
out of bed
note,
the right way, stretch, as you're walking out to the bathroom, or hobbling in my case now that I'm in my 60s. Like,
tell us a little more just about your book, Rita, while we're talking about your book.
so my book is called Simple Self-Care Saved Me, and I wrote it back in 2018. And it really is how the background story, with the adoption, and with my mom passing and all that. And then it really explains, what our nervous system is, and it really breaks it down. So each chapter is, we go right to the beginning to give you a better understanding what the fight or flight is, and
Mhm.
then talks about the three categories and gives lots of examples. And then it's all about finding that one. And Gina, I find I'm going to throw us women under the bus because I have to say, in a lot of my workshops, when they're women, and I'll say, okay, pick one thing. What are you going to do starting today? Well, I'm going to cut out all sugar. I'm only going to eat green food. I'm going to work 2 hours a day, and I'm going to do this and this and this. I don't know why we think we need to be such big overachievers,
Yeah.
and we set ourselves up for failure.
Mhm.
So there's a lot of books that I've read that have said one choice, just pick one thing, and so that really is. There's a part of the book that you write down all of the self-care you like to do, and then you
Mhm.
narrow it down just to one thing. Just start doing that one thing
Right.
one time today.
Right. I can totally
Right now,
relate.
I gotta go.
Relate to what you're saying of, yeah, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do this. You think about it with the new year coming up, people set expectations of all the changes they're going to make. I'm part of a group of women and we do some accountability stuff with each other. And I've
Oh, that's
learned,
awesome.
yeah, just picking, I'm just going to do this one little thing this week, and keeping it real simple, because you're right. We put a lot on ourselves. I mean, we find ourselves often in that position, no matter if our spouse is involved in raising our kids, a lot goes on mom. Um,
It
and
does. It's just, yeah, it does. Like, my husband's, he's a big part of the child, parenting too, but still I don't know, it's just our brains work differently and we see the dust or we see the dirt or we see the dishes before the men do. Sorry, Don.
No, I'm the one that sees most of the dust in this house, unfortunately. But
I'm sorry.
but even, for those of us working as caregivers as well, right? When my dad was sick with his Parkinson's, I stepped up to help out and I had the background and the experience. And so, my siblings and look to me as, well, Gina knows how to do this, Gina. And we take that on even more so, I think, especially we find ourselves in that role in so many different avenues. When I'm really stressed, I was good at math in school, but I didn't pursue that. And sometimes I say, I wish I had become an accountant and I could just stare at numbers all day.
You only have like 3 months of the year that would be really busy. Yeah.
When I get
But you know what?
overwhelmed
But it's a
with
woman. It's
people.
learning to like my mom was a super mom of the 70s, right? So
Mhm.
she felt like she had to do everything. Her
Mhm.
drugs of choice were Valium and high blood pressure medicine, right? That's the two things, so she could sleep and stay calm and keep her blood pressure down. Um, and it's sad that we don't, like I'm hoping we're learning now, we've learned or we're learning, ask for help. Like,
Mhm.
excuse me, why are those dishes on the counter? Like, you can do that just as well as I can, or, someone else take the trash out, or so, yeah, it's not easy. I often say the struggle is real, and stress doesn't care who you are, where you're from, how much money you have in your bank account, what color your skin is, what sexual orientation you are. Stress doesn't care.
One of the doctors I work with, she used to say that stress was like a cup inside of you, and as long as it would stay within that cup, we could manage it. It's when it gets up and it overflows is when we can't handle it. I don't know if that fits or not, but that's
Yeah.
No, I like that. I use the like an opposite analogy is you can't be your best if your cup is empty. And if your cup is
Mhm.
empty is like the self-care, the self-love cup.
Right.
So, but I think if
either
if
one,
your
yeah.
stress cup overflows, it's just as bad. So,
Sure.
yeah.
Well, I guess we could talk all day on this kind of stuff.
Good. What else would you like to talk about, Donna Gina?
Well, are there any other pointers or tips or things you'd like to share with our audience, something we didn't cover or something in more detail?
No, I think really just, understand, like slow down. Pause, take these pauses, breathe, let your nervous system reset. You don't have to do it all, you don't have to be perfect. And then really just like what's important to you and your family, like what really matters.
Right.
Um, and as I'm getting older, I'm realizing, these people aren't in my life anymore because, they drain a lot of energy. So it's really deciding sort of what matters. Oh, and one more thing. There's no such thing as life work balance. It's a teeter totter, right? This is 6, 7. So, like when you were caregiving, you couldn't keep up everything else at the same level, or else, you're going to exhaust yourself, or, we often try. But
Mhm.
something has to give. When you have a child sick at home, you can't keep up the demands of keeping the house clean and working and doing all this. Like, I think people need to understand that
There you go.
the work life balance is very dynamic and there has to be give and take on both sides. So
Yeah, which is why I sometimes let the dust go because it can only do so much.
I hired someone to clean my house. So you know what?
Yep. Yep. Finding those things. And just on a quick note, with the holidays, you mentioned, finding what's important to your family. We've shared this before in podcasts, not trying to do it all over the holidays. What are those activities that your family really enjoys rather than trying to do everything? Because yeah, we'll get overwhelmed and then we're not really happy enjoying anything if we just feel like we have all these have to things that we have to do. So,
And use a guiltless no.
mhm.
Like
Yeah.
no is a complete sentence. Just to be able to say, I would love to come to your Christmas party, but I'm already booked. Like
I used to practice saying no, 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 no.
No.
Just say it over and over to get it in my head because I'm a people pleaser and I had to learn how to say no.
Just say it to your kids all the time. No, no,
Yes.
no.
So
Well-
Rita, where can people find out more about you?
Well, my website is simpleselfcare.net. I have some free resources on there. I have a weekly text club. So that's probably the best place. My email is rita@simpleselfcare.net. If anyone has any questions, email me. I'm
Okay.
good.
And let's look forward to your next book.
Yes.
Absolutely. Hopefully in 2 years.
Okay.
We'll
that's
share
cool.
links to all this for those of us, who take the time to look at the information. So thank you for joining us today, Rita. Really looked forward to having you on again as you
Oh,
were
thank
on
you.
with us before,
course.
and especially, right now, the busy time of the year with people with holidays and things, stopping to take care of ourselves is so
Yeah.
important. So
Slow down.
exactly.
We'll have you back in three lessons to get to 200.
All right, so I can be a number 200.
Sure.
That's awesome.
Sorry.
So
Well,
thank
happy
you.
holidays. Take care. Thank you
Yes.
so much. And
Yes. Thank you, Rita, for being here today. Thank you to all of our listeners who've been here. Please like and subscribe to our podcast. Please check out our other podcasts that we've put out there. If you're going through a struggling journey caring for your aging loved one and or other family members, look at our website, focusedhealthyfamily.com. Learn more about what we can do. Don's EFT tapping practice. You can learn more about that as well, all at focusedhealthyfamily.com. You can find us on Facebook at Focused Healthy Family, on Instagram at Focused Healthy Family 1, YouTube at
We're throwing her off.
YouTube.
sorry, Gina.
That's okay. At Focused Healthy
I'm tapping.
Family. Yes. Yes, because you can listen to these podcasts as well as watch them on YouTube. So thank you and join us again on next Thursday. And remember, how you speak to your children and your loved ones today shapes their future and yours.